Hello, my name is William Dolden. I'll be doing the project Stressing Me Out for Evaluate Popular Psychology. The first step is to define stress. Stanger says that stress refers to the physiological response that occurs when an organism fails to respond appropriately to emotional or physical threats. Next, we're going to talk about the body's reaction to stress. The autonomic nervous system is affected by stress. The HPA axis and ANS is a physiological response to stress within the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and adrenal glands. These glands secrete hormones to help function within the physiological action of the body. The HPA response to stress begins with the hypothalamus secreting and releasing hormones that cause the pituitary gland to release the hormone ACTH. ACTH is the abbreviation for androcorticotropic hormone, defined by thefreedictionary.com under the medical dictionary section. The ACTH directs the adrenal glands to secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. Epinephrine affects the heart rate, blood pressure, cardiac output, and carbohydrate mechanisms according to dictionary.com. Norepinephrine constricts blood vessels and causes high blood pressure. Cortisol is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. The issues of these hormones release can cause heart attack, stroke, or even diabetes as the sugar is affected. To explain the following terms in your own words: optimism, self-efficacy, and hardiness. Optimism is a general tendency to expect positive outcomes. This is referred when speaking of the power of positive thinking. Expect a positive action and one will arise. That's the idea behind that. Self-efficacy, I can't pronounce that word. I'm sorry. I keep struggling over it. Is the belief in our ability to carry out actions that produce desired outcomes. This is meant by people able to control their own environment, react better to stressful situations than those who do not have power. For example, the stress of incarceration is difficult because the inmate does not have control over virtually anything. Conversely, as depicted in the text, patients in nursing homes that are able to rearrange rooms or move about freely have experienced less stress than those that have not been able to have those opportunities. Hardiness. Hardy individuals are those who are more positive overall about potentially stressful life events, who take more direct action to understand the causes of negative events, and who attempt to learn from what may be of value for the future, according to the text. These individuals will see what will happen, although potentially stressful, and cope with it. They learn from the misaction of stress, and move towards the future with new tools in hand. If we look at why it's important to manage stress, stress management is important because the body and mind need it managed. Early death can arise. Mental anguish and breakdowns can come into play. In order to live a fulfilling life, stress must be kept in check. Interactions with others are better and more easily established when stress is in check. Managing stress simply makes life easier to live. Undoubtedly, stress will arise. The way it is attacked is what is important in this time frame. Looking at the stress in my life, I have a couple different jobs. I teach part-time. I'm doing this part-time, and I work full-time as an asset protection manager. And the one I'm going to look at is the asset protection manager aspect of things. I am an asset protection manager for a Walmart Supercenter. Asset protection is more than loss prevention through theft. It is a management of losing profit. Loss of profit through theft, misworked paperwork, and improper ordering is called shrink. As an asset protection manager, I'm responsible for controlling shrink. First, I have to manage accident claims. As part of a large corporation, there are accidents, both associates and customers. This can be stressful as there is a lot to be done here based on liability. For example, if it's raining outside, and then floor mats, blowers, and dry mops, as well as wet floor signs, need to be put in place. If all the elements are not in place, the company, more specifically the store, can be liable for an accident, as these are what is required by law and other standards. Of course, the idea is that safety of everyone is paramount. But if these elements are not in place, there arises an issue where fault or blame can be placed. This provides stressful because I can't be in the store 24 hours a day. I have to trust the people that are there when I'm not to take over and do the right thing. Next, I have to put in place an MPP, or merchandise protection plan. This is where it is determined what high theft or high value merchandise needs to be placed in more stringent locking systems. This becomes stressful because if merchandise that I deem unnecessary to be secured gets stolen, then I'm looked at as to why it wasn't secured better. Another area I have to worry about is accounting. This is stressful because there is, as expected, a large amount of money that goes through the store at any given time. The accounting office is off by a certain amount of money. Then it becomes my job to research why that money isn't there. It's also my responsibility to ensure that items are received and priced properly. I have to verify paperwork and ensure that changes in pricings have been done by proper systematic way of doing things. If the price changes are done differently, there can be a loss of profits, which can directly affect my performance. Finally, I'm responsible for federal state compliance when it comes to safety. OSHA guidelines must be followed. IWAS stations must be up to date. Fire lanes need to be cleared. Chemical and hazardous waste has to be disposed of properly. All of these responsibilities fall on my shoulders. The job I have has a high turnover. The people in my position find stress to be too much. One fellow employee had a stroke and a heart attack simultaneously. He survived and is back to work, but life-threatening effects of stress here are real. The successful way I deal with stress is I've learned to leave work at work. I have found that in life, at least mine, there needs to be a compartmentalization of different facets of my life. I try to leave stressors to deal with at home in keeping with stressors in place. It's not always been my way of thinking. I worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections for 13 years. In my 13 years, I was an extremely focused and driven individual. I taught basic training for a year. I traveled to different facilities teaching other trainers how to teach. For 5 years, I went to school full-time while working for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, ever attempting to raise my salary and status. Over the completion of my first master's degree, I became a therapist in the psychology department. I entered a new realm of thinking, going from security mindset to that of a treatment one. After working in psychology for almost a year, the stress built up to be too much, and I had a nervous breakdown, it caused my untimely retirement from the state job. Through talk and medication therapy, I've learned to deal with my stress so this doesn't happen again, and I'm doing well. Strategies for managing stress can come from a variety of places. As I've stated, I learned to compartmentalize my stressors. I've learned that it becomes unnecessary to worry about things I can't control. Social support helps manage stress. If an individual has someone they can lean on to help themselves go through stressful situations, they react better to stress. Marriage relationships, for example, can help with stress when the two are committed to each other and committed to managing stress together. Finally, managing stress by looking at the future can be helpful. If an individual sees past a stressful situation onto the future, then there could be a more positive outcome. Having the attitude that this too shall pass is a positive attitude to have, knowing that stress is temporary. Thank you.